There's a truth that almost no one wants to hear, because it breaks the illusion that comfort will save you. The truth is this: pain is not your punishment. It is your teacher, and the men who try to escape it spend their whole lives wondering why they never became who they were meant to be. Most people avoid pain like it's poison. They call it unfair. They call it suffering. They call it failure. But pain is the architect of strength. It is the silent sculptor that carves your weakness into power. It strips you of your illusions, your excuses, your false pride. And what's left if you endure it long enough is something unbreakable. Curtis Yarvin once wrote that power belongs to those who have suffered enough to understand reality. He wasn't talking about politics. He was talking about the inner kingdom, the empire inside a man's soul. That empire cannot be built with comfort. It can only be built with pain. You can't become disciplined if you've never been tempted. You can't become wise if you've never been broken. You can't become unstoppable if you've never been knocked to your knees. Pain introduces you to the parts of yourself you would never meet in safety. It reveals who you are when no one is watching, when everything falls apart, when you have nothing left but your will. That's why some men rise while others collapse. Because when pain arrives, weak men seek escape. Strong men seek understanding. They ask, what is this trying to teach me? And through that question, they evolve. This is not just another speech about motivation. This is a reminder of what you were built for. You were not designed to be safe. You were designed to struggle, to build, to break, to rebuild, and to rise. If life feels unbearable right now, good. It means the teacher has arrived, and the lesson is waiting for you to listen. This is Curtis Yarvin. Pain is the teacher that builds unstoppable men. And this is the speech every man must hear. Part 1. The Comfort That Kills. Curtis Yarvin once said, "When everything is made easy, men forget how to be men." Look around and you'll see what he meant. We live in a world where every discomfort has been engineered away. Too tired? There's a pill. Too lonely? There's a screen. Too anxious? There's a distraction. Every edge has been softened, every challenge removed, and every man has been told to take it easy. But what does ease do? It kills ambition. It kills courage. It kills the warrior that once lived inside every man. Because when life becomes too soft, the mind follows. The heart weakens. The purpose fades. And soon all that remains is a shell, a man who looks alive but feels nothing. Yarvin believed that modern civilization secretly hates struggle. And because of that, it hates growth. We are taught that happiness comes from comfort. But the truth is the opposite. Comfort breeds decay. Struggle breeds evolution. When you lift weight, your muscles tear, but they rebuild stronger. When you study what you don't understand, your mind aches, but it grows sharper. When you lose someone or something you love, your heart cracks, but it learns to expand. That is the hidden pattern of all creation. Pain destroys what is weak so that something stronger can rise. The greatest mistake a man can make is thinking that comfort is love. Comfort is the slowest poison ever made. It lulls you into a trance of safety until you forget that the world respects only the man who endures. Every great man, from the builders of empires to the thinkers of revolutions, was born through pain. Not one of them escaped it, they embraced it. Because they knew that pain was not the end of the road, it was the beginning. The beginning of clarity, the birth of resilience, the awakening of power. The world will not hand you strength. It will hand you suffering. And in that suffering, you will either learn to rise or you will learn to hide. That's the test every man faces. And the test never ends. So when you feel the weight pressing on you, when everything you love starts to fall apart, don't pray for the pain to disappear. Pray for the strength to learn from it. Because pain is not your enemy. It's the invitation to become who you were always meant to be. Part 2. The Forge of Discipline. Pain is the fire, but discipline is the forge that gives that fire meaning. Without discipline, pain just burns you. With discipline, it transforms you. Curtis Yarvin teaches that a man without structure is a man without sovereignty. That means if you can't command yourself, you'll always be ruled by something else: fear, laziness, temptation, weakness, the opinions of others. You cannot build power until you first build discipline. Discipline is not a punishment. It's freedom disguised as struggle. It's waking up before you want to. It's doing the work when no one is clapping. It's saying no to the easy path when your whole body begs for it. It's the daily decision to suffer for something greater than yourself. Men often think motivation will save them, but motivation fades. Discipline is what remains when the excitement is gone. It's the quiet, steady force that carries you when inspiration dies. Yarvin often writes about hierarchy not as domination over others, but as the internal order a man must build within himself. Your instincts must serve your mind. Your mind must serve your purpose. Your purpose must serve your higher calling. That is inner hierarchy, and it can only be forged through discipline. When life throws you into chaos, when pain blinds you, when the world feels meaningless, discipline is the rope you hold on to. It doesn't erase pain, it channels it. It says, I will not waste this suffering. And that right there is where greatness is born. Every man you admire has this one trait in common: they suffered. But they did not surrender. They turned pain into training. They turned loss into lessons. They turned heartbreak into hunger. And in that transformation, they became unbreakable. Remember this: pain will not last forever, but the strength it gives you will. The fire that once burned you will one day warm you. The discipline that once hurt will one day protect you. And when the next storm comes, because it always does, you will not beg for peace. You will stand in the rain and smile, knowing that you've already survived worse. Pain taught you, discipline forged you, and now nothing can destroy you. Part 3. The fall that shapes you. There is a moment every man faces, the moment when everything collapses. The plan fails. The people you trusted disappear. The work you gave your soul to turns to dust. In that silence, when there is no applause, no help, no rescue, that's when you meet the truth of yourself. Curtis Yarvin calls this the necessary collapse. He writes that the fall is not a curse, it's an initiation, because only when your old identity dies can the new one begin to breathe. You think pain destroys you, but it doesn't. It exposes you. It reveals every weakness you've been hiding behind pride and distraction. It strips you naked before reality and asks, now that the illusion is gone, who are you really? Most men never recover because they never answer that question. They let the fall define them instead of refine them. They believe that failure means finality. But failure is just feedback. It's the world saying, you weren't ready yet. Learn and return. There is no strength without collapse. There is no power without humiliation. Because humility is not weakness, it's the moment you stop pretending. And that's when your true rebuilding begins. Yarvin once wrote, the man who can rebuild after ruin is more dangerous than the man who never fell. Why? Because the man who has fallen has seen death, the death of comfort, the death of ego, the death of illusion. He no longer fears pain. He no longer begs for safety. He has learned that pain is predictable and therefore survivable. So when you fall, don't hide from it. Don't rush to recover your image. Sit in the ashes and listen. The ashes always speak the truth. They'll whisper to you what went wrong, not to shame you, but to sharpen you. The world breaks every man in a different way. But those who learn from the breaking, they rise not as who they were, but as who they were meant to be. Part 4. The rebuilding of the self. Once the fall has done its work, the rebuilding must begin. And this is where most men quit. Because rebuilding isn't glorious. It's slow, lonely, and invisible. Curtis Yarvin says, real reconstruction happens in private, long before the world believes in you again. He's right. The man who rebuilds doesn't post his progress. He doesn't announce his comeback. He simply wakes up every morning and does the work. Brick by brick. Habit by habit. Discipline by discipline. Rebuilding is the art of patience. The world may laugh at you, doubt you, ignore you, but you keep moving, because you understand something deeper. The world only respects the finished product, not the construction site. When you start again from nothing, you become dangerous, because you no longer rely on luck. You rely on repetition. You rely on pain as a compass, on discipline as your weapon, and on self-respect as your armor. Every scar becomes a memory of survival. Every rejection becomes a reminder of what no longer controls you. Every day you rise again, even when no one's watching. You prove to yourself that you cannot be erased. Rebuilding means cutting away what's false, the fake friends, the bad habits, the hollow ambitions. You stop living to impress and start living to express what's real. And once you find that authenticity, you begin to move differently. You walk with silence. You speak less but mean more. You no longer chase validation, you radiate conviction. Yarvin calls this the second birth of the mind, when a man stops being a product of his past and becomes the architect of his future. It's the phase where pain turns from an enemy into an ally. It's when you finally understand that everything you lost was training for what you're about to gain. Rebuilding doesn't happen overnight, but every small act, every disciplined choice, every quiet victory stacks into something unstoppable. And when the day comes that you look back at what you've built, you'll realize the pain never left. It simply evolved into power. Part 5. Turning pain into purpose. Now you have endured. You have fallen. You have rebuilt. But there is one final transformation left. Turning pain into purpose. Pain by itself means nothing. It is simply energy, raw, chaotic, emotional fire. But when you direct it toward meaning, it becomes creation. Curtis Yarvin says, purpose is pain organized by vision. Think about that. Pain gives you the energy, but purpose gives you the direction. Without purpose, pain turns to bitterness. With purpose, pain turns to greatness. Every man must find what his suffering is trying to teach him. Maybe your pain is meant to make you patient. Maybe it's meant to break your ego. Maybe it's meant to awaken a fire that's been sleeping for years. Whatever it is, listen closely, because that message is yours alone. When you align your pain with a mission, you become unstoppable. You stop needing approval because your path now has meaning. You stop fearing loss because you finally understand that pain was never loss, it was fuel. Look at the strongest men in history. They didn't become legends because they avoided suffering. They became legends because they gave their suffering a reason. They turned heartbreak into art. They turned rejection into leadership. They turned loneliness into vision. They turned pain into purpose. That's the secret of the unstoppable man. He doesn't just survive his pain, he harnesses it. He uses it to build, to serve, to lead, to rise. Yarvin writes that true power is not control over others, but control over yourself. When you master your pain, you master your reality. You no longer react to life, you shape it. You don't ask, why did this happen to me? You ask, what can I build from this? And that question, that shift, changes everything. Because once your pain has purpose, no setback can destroy you. Every failure becomes feedback. Every scar becomes strategy. Every wound becomes wisdom. That's when the man becomes unstoppable. Not because he's perfect, but because he's been broken and rebuilt on purpose. Part 6. The fire of isolation. At some point on this path, you will be alone, and not the pleasant kind of solitude, the real one. The kind where the phone stops buzzing, the laughter fades. The room feels like an echo chamber, and you start to wonder if you've lost your way entirely. That's when most men quit, because isolation feels like death, but in truth, it's the final purification. Curtis Yarvin once said, solitude is the tax you pay for authenticity. If you want to become someone rare, you must first walk roads few will understand. The crowd cannot follow you into your transformation. They will not applaud you while you rebuild your character in silence. They only celebrate when the work is done. So when the silence grows heavy, remember it's not emptiness. It's space. Space for your mind to sharpen, your emotions to settle, your vision to return. Isolation is not abandonment. It's alignment. The men who become dangerous in this world are the ones who have made peace with their aloneness. They sit with their thoughts until the noise dies. They turn solitude into strategy. They use the absence of applause as the proof of their purpose. It's in that quiet that you finally realize you were never meant to be understood by everyone. Your path was never meant for the crowd. If your vision is born from pain, it will always look strange to those who live in comfort. So stop begging for company in places meant for growth. Let people misunderstand you. Let them mock the silence, because one day that same silence will become the sound of mastery. Yarvin says, the man who can stand alone can stand against anything. That's not philosophy, that's survival. When you've been alone long enough, pain stops being the enemy. It becomes the rhythm of your progress, the heartbeat of your evolution. And when you return to the world, you don't come back needy. You come back whole. Isolation burns away the false connections, the shallow motivations, the empty habits. It forges a man who acts from conviction, not from consensus. And that man, the one who no longer fears being alone, is the man who is ready to lead. Part 7. The rise of the unstoppable man. You've endured the fire. You've rebuilt from ruin. You've walked alone through silence. Now the time has come to rise, not as who you were, but as who pain made you. The unstoppable man is not a myth. He's not born from luck or privilege. He's built from repetition, failure, and the relentless refusal to stay broken. Curtis Yarvin calls him the sovereign man, a man who no longer reacts to the world, but responds from within it. He doesn't need permission to move. He doesn't wait for motivation. He doesn't chase validation. He acts because action itself has become his nature. The unstoppable man lives by principles forged in adversity. He knows that fear is temporary, but regret is eternal. He understands that pain cannot be avoided, only mastered. And he treats every obstacle not as resistance, but as fuel. Every morning he wakes with the same thought. There's work to do. Not because anyone is watching, but because the work itself defines him. He has learned that greatness is quiet, that legacy is built, not spoken, that real strength isn't loud, it's consistent. The unstoppable man is dangerous not because he fights others, but because he no longer fights himself. His mind and his mission move in one direction. His scars are not symbols of pity, they're proof of passage. Yarvin writes, "Power belongs to the man who has survived his own weakness. That is the essence of unstoppable. When you've faced your own darkness and still chosen to move forward, the world has nothing left it can take from you. You've mastered the hardest lesson. Pain was never sent to destroy you. It was sent to prepare you." Ending. The lesson of fire. And now as the dust settles and the journey completes, you can look back and see it clearly. Every heartbreak, every loss, every sleepless night, they weren't punishments. They were lessons in disguise. Pain was the teacher. Discipline was the classroom. Isolation was the test. And purpose was the reward. Curtis Yarvin reminds us that man's greatness is measured not by comfort, but by endurance. Because endurance is proof that you still believe even when everything collapses. Endurance means that the fire didn't burn you out, it burned you clean. The truth is, life will never stop testing you. Every stage of your evolution will bring new pain. But once you understand its purpose, you stop fearing it. You begin to meet pain like an old friend, one who arrives only when it's time for you to grow again. So the next time life hits you hard, don't ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" And listen, because that question separates the ordinary from the exceptional. Be the man who learns. Be the man who endures. Be the man who rises every single time he falls. Pain is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your power. You are not meant to live safe. You are meant to live strong. And strength, as Curtis Yarvin teaches, is nothing more than pain mastered. So go ahead, face the storm. Walk through the fire. Build yourself into the kind of man that nothing can stop. Because in the end, it's not the comforted who lead the world. It's the ones who dared to suffer with purpose. This is the way of the unstoppable man. This is the lesson of pain. And this is the truth every man must hear.